Hi, this is Charles Kelly, Money Tips. Today I have a guest with me who is a mortgage broker. His name is Mitesh. The company is called Our Mortgage Broker. Good morning, Mitesh.
Morning, Charles.
Morning. So today we're going to give you some updates on what's going on in the mortgage market and also talk about some things that you may not have heard about before. In a lot of blocks of flats. I looked at a flat the other day, and you'd look at it,
Yeah.
it was brick, but there was this bit around the windows that had this white kind of plastic type cladding that was just surrounding the windows, and because of that there's a problem on that whole block. So I'm assuming you're getting lots of flats that maybe going to auction. This was actually in an auction, but in an auction people are generally cash buyers, and then maybe later on they find out, well, there's a problem. So you must have come across that, but there are ways around it, I believe.
There are ways around it. So there are a few lenders that will take a common sense approach.
Okay.
When it's a common sense approach, what they're trying to understand is that if the developer or the management company is happy to answer a few questions on a head of paper for the lender, and it's basically a yes/no question. There's 3 or 4 that gets asked generally, and if that gets satisfied, then the lender might be happy to lend. I actually had a very interesting case back in last year for a very close friend. He just completed because he moved from buying a flat because of all these issues of cladding to a house then later on, because he could afford a house. So he realized that it was a big mistake going down this route. I should just go for a house. It's a good investment long term, holds its value. So the reason why that case sticks to my mind is because I spent nearly 3 weeks going back and forth with different people involved in the transaction. So that's the seller's solicitor, the counsel involved where the client was looking to buy, the lender, the underwriter, and the valuer. Lots of email around. Yeah, so a lot of work for me. What I did actually find out in the end was that the lender turned around and said, in all honesty, if an EWS1 form, which is kind of what the normal standard requirement is, a form that's available with the management.
What is that? Just for people to know, what is an EWS form?
So an EWS form is just like a summary form that basically tells you that after all the inspections are done in the building, whether that particular building has cladding or not, or if it's type of cladding, then they have a grade for cladding. So it doesn't require remedial work. And there will be codings like B1, B2, A1, A2.
Okay. So
it's like a one-page form, and it's then signed off. And that's a document generally that the lender would need. Most lenders don't need that. It just avoids unnecessary questions back and forth with lawyers.
Right. Okay.
So
great.
In this scenario, what happened was the lender was very relaxed. They said, look, if you can't get this EWS1 form for us, not an issue. And I was surprised, actually. I thought maybe we'll just insist because that's what the email stated. That's what we need. They actually came back and said, look, we understand the situation you're in. And by the sounds of it, they may be cladding, but they may not be. But the values have actually pointed out that there's potential cladding near the staircase area. So what happened in the end was that they said to me, there are these areas within the criteria that state that if this particular type of material is being used, then we would have a problem. But if you can confirm to us that these materials, specific materials, are not in the building, we are more than happy to approve the mortgage. Now, that was an eye-opener for me. And so we just needed that. Unfortunately, the management company couldn't draft the letter for us, or anybody else for that matter, as the developer, because they had a list of professionals that could draft the letter for the lender. And so we really tried very hard for the client, but eventually that didn't happen. What was really funny was 2 months into the transaction, the seller solicitor came back and said, based on the discussion, we've looked at this in more detail, and it looks like an EWS1 form would be required, and something would need to get done about it. So obviously that means that it would have taken another 6 months before everything sort of became very official. But they said, look, we can't wait for the buyer to wait until that official process is completed before we sell the flat. And I said to my client, well, that's your call, because then, it's going to be hard for any lender to try and understand what the actual real issue is, because no one's really telling us what the issue is. So you had to then, step back and then, you don't manage to get a house. But that's a class example. This is within the last 6 months. And so it's, something that's recent, current, and I can tell you from experience now that, there are lenders that will take a view on things like that. There's areas like bridging finance that we do as well, where certain lenders will again take a common sense approach. They have systems in place, or they look at areas like any high street lenders have lent in the last 3-4 years on that property. Look at the website of the property management company. They'll need a bit of a chat with somebody in charge there, and maybe a letter confirming one or two things. So there are things like that do take place. It is down to the lender's discretion. Do they like the security? Do they want to lend against something like that? Because at the end of the day, they're going. They're basically using the discretion on that particular transaction. So I thought I'd just share that, because obviously it's not
very interesting.
common knowledge in the market that these things happen.
That's interesting that there is a way around it. For people who don't understand, cladding is this cladding that goes on buildings that caused the Grenfell Tower fire, and people died in that. So since then, a lot of people are in flats that have been built in the last few years, and they can't sell them. They're unmortgageable, and it's caused major problems. The government have tried to step in, but it's still up in the air in many cases. But this is where you need a good broker to see if they can do something about it. And you also mentioned the management company.
Yes.
This is why, personally, flats can be difficult for me to buy, because you get very difficult management companies. They want to talk to you. They want to charge you £300 just to do anything, even a letter or something. Right. And then you've got management charges. If you're buying a flat, do look at the management charges, because generally the owner's paying for that. And if you're renting it out, and you're getting £1,500 a month rent, but the management charge is £300 a month, you're not really getting £1,500 a month. So you always look at that with blocks of flats.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, sometimes you find service charges are quite high as well, depending on the type of block, or if work's being carried out, then maybe the service charge on a year-to-year basis may have an increment. So again, doesn't help. I've got a close friend just down the road from where I live in Northwest London. He's had the same issue the last 5-7 years. Same sort of issues around service charges just going up and up and up every year.
Yeah, it's difficult. All the flats I've ever bought in the past, I've always had trouble with management companies, service charges. They've always been a headache. Yeah. And the government have also promised to reform the Leasehold Act, but that hasn't happened. They're talking about the Renters Reform Act, which affects landlords and tenants, but they're not doing anything about the Leasehold Act.
That's right.
Okay, great. So that's great. I think that we've covered quite a lot there, but thanks for that. And we'll put your contact details up. I think LinkedIn is the best way to contact you, but we'll put that up on the notes for people who want to contact Mitesh. But I think you've got 20 years experience in the market, so you've seen it all. You've seen all the low and high rates come and go, like I have. So you've got a lot of experience and you also give good advice to people rather than just saying, well, here's a product. So I would say if you want to get a good mortgage that's right for you, talk to a broker, because they can look at the whole of the market rather than just looking at one rate on a website and going down that rabbit hole. So great. I think, anything else you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say, you mentioned about my event, which was held at the Holiday Inn in Watford. So I've recently acquired a service office at the Regis Building in Croxley Park in Watford. So I'm keen to connect with clients more face to face. And I think there's more for demand now with all the COVID issues out of the way. Yeah. So when we've also got an office now in our main office basically is in Mayfair. So if people want to visit around the city area, I'm only 20 minutes away. I live in Northwest London, and Watford obviously is kind of the place of work for me. So I'm more mobile now than before, and I know clients prefer that face-to-face meeting. Don't charge for a face-to-face meetings, so the initial consultation is always going to be free. So more than happy for clients to pop in and have a chat or a cup of coffee as well.
Okay, so you deal with residential, investors, buy-to-let, bridging, older borrowers, you do the whole thing.
Development finance, commercial. We haven't touched on commercial. Big space. Yeah.
Well, we can talk about that in the next chat then.
we could again that market's in a shift as well. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much for your time, Mitesh.
Great.
I really appreciate it, and I hope you've got some good information for that. Put it in the comments, and please like and share, so we can get this out to more people. Just to remind you, next Wednesday, the coming Wednesday, I've got a webinar, free webinar on managing your money so that you can learn to become financially free, whether it's through property or whatever. And that's at 8 p.m. next. And I'll put some notes up about that as well next Wednesday. So thanks very much, Mitesh, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.